Segment 1. A day in the life of a Spartan citizen. Setting the scene, dawn in ancient Sparta. Imagine, if you will, waking up in Sparta around 480 BC. The first light of dawn is creeping over the Laconian plains, painting the sky in soft shades of rose and gold. In the distance, Mount Taygetus rises majestically, its peaks catching the early morning light like a crown of silver and purple. This is not the harsh, militaristic world you might expect from movies and dramatic tales, but rather a place of surprising beauty and profound simplicity. Hello, if you're liking these stories, it'd mean a lot if you hit that like button or subscribed. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment with your location and the time there. It always amazes me how people all over the world drift off to sleep with these. The air is crisp and clean, carrying the scent of olive groves and wild herbs that grow in the surrounding hills. Sparrows chirp softly in the cypress trees, and somewhere in the distance, you can hear the gentle lowing of cattle and the soft whisper of wind through grain fields. This is a world where every dawn brings the same peaceful routine, where life moves to a rhythm as old as the hills themselves. The Spartan landscape stretches before you like a pastoral painting. Olive groves dot the countryside, their silver-green leaves catching the morning light. Small streams wind their way through the valleys, their waters clear and cool. The training fields, where young Spartans will soon practice their exercises, are empty now, covered with morning dew that sparkles like scattered diamonds. In the distance, the city of Sparta itself is beginning to stir. Smoke rises from cooking fires, and the first citizens emerge from their simple homes, ready to begin another day of their carefully ordered lives. There's something deeply peaceful about this routine, this sense of knowing exactly what each day will bring. Daily life, the beauty of simplicity. Life in Sparta was built around the concept of simplicity, not the harsh austerity we might imagine, but rather the kind of elegant simplicity that comes from knowing exactly what is important and what is not. Spartan citizens lived in modest homes, ate simple foods, and focused their energy on what they believed truly mattered: physical fitness, mental discipline, and service to their community. The Spartan philosophy was that luxury and comfort made people weak, so they chose instead to live in a way that strengthened both body and character. But this wasn't about deprivation, it was about clarity. When you remove the unnecessary complications from life, what remains is often surprisingly peaceful and satisfying. As the morning progresses, the city comes alive with a gentle energy. Citizens move through their daily routines with the fluid grace of people who have been following the same patterns for generations. There's no rush, no anxiety, just the calm satisfaction of knowing one's place in the world. Daily routine of a Spartan male, the path of discipline. If you were a young Spartan boy, your day would begin before dawn. But let's not focus on the harsh aspects of the agoge training that history often emphasizes. Instead, imagine the deep bonds of friendship that formed between boys who shared every meal, every challenge, every quiet moment together. The boys would wake in their communal barracks, not to harsh commands, but to the gentle stirring of their companions. They would help each other prepare for the day, sharing the simple black broth called melas zomos, a humble meal that, while not luxurious, was nourishing and sufficient. There was something comforting about this shared simplicity, this knowledge that everyone was eating the same food, wearing the same simple clothes, following the same routines. The training itself, while demanding, had a meditative quality. The repetitive exercises, the synchronized movements, the focus on breathing and balance, all of this created a kind of moving meditation. The boys learned to quiet their minds and find peace even in the midst of physical challenges. During rest periods, they would gather in small groups, sharing stories and jokes, forming the deep friendships that would last throughout their lives. These moments of quiet companionship were precious, creating bonds stronger than those formed in any family. The Krypteia, often described as a harsh secret police force, can also be understood as a rite of passage into adulthood. Young Spartans would spend time alone in the wilderness, learning to be self-sufficient and to understand their own strength. In the quiet of the countryside, with only the stars for company, they would discover inner resources they never knew they possessed. Daily routine of a Spartan woman. Strength and grace. Spartan women lived remarkably free lives compared to women in other Greek city-states. They were encouraged to be strong, both physically and mentally, and their daily routines reflected this philosophy. Imagine a Spartan woman beginning her day with gentle exercises in the cool morning air. She might run along the paths that wound through the olive groves, her feet finding their rhythm on the dusty earth. There was something profoundly peaceful about this solitary time, when the world was quiet and she could simply be present with her own thoughts and the beauty of the natural world around her. After her morning exercise, she might practice with the javelin, not in a warlike way, but with the same meditative focus that a dancer brings to her art. Each throw was an opportunity to perfect her technique, to find the perfect balance between strength and grace. When the men were away at war, which was often, Spartan women effectively ran the society. They managed the household, made important decisions, and raised their children. But rather than being a burden, this responsibility gave them a sense of purpose and capability that was rare in the ancient world. In the evenings, groups of women would gather to work on their weaving and to share stories. These gatherings were warm and supportive, filled with gentle laughter and the quiet satisfaction of skilled hands creating beautiful things. The rhythm of the loom, the soft conversation, the feeling of being part of a community of strong, capable women. All of this created a sense of peace and belonging. Spartan politics and social system, the wisdom of balance. The Spartan political system was designed around the principle of balance. They had two kings, not one, so that power would never be concentrated in a single person. This dual monarchy meant that decisions were made through discussion and consensus rather than by decree. The ephors, 5 elected officials, served as a check on royal power. They were ordinary citizens who, for 1 year, would help guide the city's decisions. There was something deeply democratic about this system, a recognition that wisdom could come from anywhere in the community. The Gerousia, or Council of Elders, was made up of men over 60 who had proven their wisdom through long experience. When they met, it was not in grand palaces but in simple buildings, sitting on plain wooden benches, focusing on the substance of their discussions rather than on pomp or ceremony. These political institutions created a sense of stability and continuity. Citizens knew that their voices would be heard, that decisions would be made thoughtfully, and that the system would endure long after any individual had passed away. The Helots, a complex relationship. The relationship between Spartans and Helots was undoubtedly the most troubling aspect of Spartan society. The Helots were the agricultural workers who made the Spartan way of life possible, and their situation was far from ideal. But even within this difficult system, there were moments of human connection and mutual respect. Helots worked the farms that fed the city, tending the olive groves and grain fields that surrounded Sparta. In the early morning, you might see them walking to their work, tools in hand, greeting each other with quiet words. Despite their circumstances, they found ways to maintain their dignity and to care for their families. Some helots developed close relationships with their Spartan masters, becoming trusted advisors and even friends. Children of both groups sometimes played together, and these early friendships sometimes endured into adulthood, creating bridges across the social divide. The helot communities had their own traditions and celebrations, ways of maintaining their cultural identity even within the constraints of their situation. They would gather in the evenings to share meals, tell stories, and pass down their customs to the next generation. While the system was fundamentally unjust, it's important to remember that the individual relationships within it were often more complex and human than we might expect. Acts of kindness, moments of understanding, and genuine care existed alongside the institutional inequalities. Night falls in Sparta, the end of day. As evening approaches in our ancient Spartan day, the city begins to quiet. The training fields empty, and citizens make their way home through streets lit by oil lamps and torches. The flickering light creates dancing shadows on the simple stone buildings, and the air fills with the scent of cooking fires and evening meals. Families gather in their modest homes, sharing simple but satisfying dinners. Conversation flows easily, focused on the events of the day and plans for tomorrow. Children listen to stories from their elders, tales of heroes and gods that have been told for generations. In the barracks, young men settle into their communal sleeping areas, the day's training behind them. They talk quietly among themselves, sharing thoughts and dreams, finding comfort in the presence of their brothers in arms. The bonds formed in these evening conversations will last a lifetime. Spartan women, after ensuring their households are settled for the night, might step outside to look up at the stars. The night sky above Sparta is vast and clear, unmarred by any artificial light. The constellations will overhead in their eternal dance, a reminder of the timeless rhythms that govern all life. Gradually, the city falls silent. Guards take their posts, but even they move quietly, respecting the peace of the night. In homes throughout Sparta, citizens settle into sleep, confident in the knowledge that tomorrow will bring another day of purposeful, ordered life. The last sounds to fade are the gentle voices of mothers singing lullabies to their children, the soft footsteps of a late walker returning home, and the distant call of a night bird. Then even these fade, leaving only the whisper of wind through the olive groves and the quiet breathing of a city at rest. Segment 2. The bathhouses of ancient Rome. Soft scene transition from Sparta to Rome. Now let's gently leave Sparta behind, like closing a peaceful book and setting it aside with gratitude. We're going to drift through time and space, floating on our imaginary river of history, until we find ourselves in a completely different world, the warm, steamy, social world of a Roman bathhouse. Feel the scene around you changing softly, like dissolving from one dream into another. The disciplined simplicity of Sparta fades, replaced by the comfortable luxury of Roman civilization. The dry Mediterranean air of Greece gives way to the humid, scented atmosphere of the Thermae. You can almost feel the temperature rising gently around you, as if someone has just opened the door to a warm, welcoming room. The Thermae, a daily ritual of renewal. The Roman bathhouse was far more than just a place to get clean. It was the heart of social life, a place where citizens of all classes could come together to relax, socialize, and rejuvenate both body and spirit. Imagine entering one of these magnificent complexes in the late afternoon, when the day's work is done and the gentle pleasure of the evening lies ahead. The bathhouse welcomes you with its grand entrance, but there's nothing intimidating about its grandeur. Instead, it feels like being invited into the most comfortable home imaginable, where everything has been designed for your pleasure and relaxation. The sound of flowing water echoes softly through the halls, mixing with the gentle murmur of conversation and the occasional splash of someone entering one of the pools. The air is warm and humid, carrying the scents of olive oil, perfumed soaps, and the clean smell of fresh water. Steam rises from the various pools, creating a dreamy, almost mystical atmosphere. The lighting is soft and golden, coming from oil lamps and the natural light filtering through high windows. A journey through the rooms, the ritual of bathing. Your journey through the bathhouse begins in the apoditorium, the changing room. Here, you would remove your everyday clothes and leave behind the concerns of the outside world. The room is lined with alcoves where you can store your belongings, and the atmosphere is one of quiet anticipation. People move slowly and deliberately, already beginning to relax as they prepare for the pleasures ahead. Attendants are available to help with oils and towels, but they work quietly and unobtrusively, allowing you to maintain the peaceful mood. The wooden benches are smooth and comfortable, worn by countless bathers over the years. There's something deeply satisfying about following a ritual that has been practiced by so many people before you. From the changing room, you would move into the tepidarium, the warm room. This is where the real relaxation begins. The temperature is perfectly comfortable, warm enough to relax your muscles, but not so hot as to be overwhelming. The room is often decorated with beautiful mosaics depicting peaceful scenes from nature. Dolphins playing in the waves, gardens full of flowers, pastoral landscapes that transport your mind to tranquil places. Here, you might receive a gentle massage with perfumed oils. The skilled hands of the masseur work out the knots and tension in your muscles, and you feel the stress of daily life melting away. The oils smell of roses, lavender, or other soothing herbs, and they make your skin feel soft and luxurious. The caldarium, or hot room, is the heart of the bathing experience. The temperature here is quite warm, but not uncomfortably so. The heat envelopes you like a gentle embrace, and you feel your pores opening and your circulation improving. The steam rises around you, creating a private, meditative space even in the midst of a social environment. Some bathers choose to sit quietly in the caldarium, letting the heat work its magic on their bodies and minds. Others engage in gentle conversation with their neighbors, the warm atmosphere making even strangers feel like old friends. The acoustics of the room are such that voices carry softly, creating a gentle murmur that adds to the peaceful ambience. Finally, the frigidarium offers the invigorating experience of cool water. But this isn't a shock to the system. It's a gradual transition that leaves you feeling refreshed and energized. The cool water is crystal clear, and the sudden change in temperature makes you feel incredibly alive and alert. Architecture and design, beauty in every detail. The Roman bathhouses were marvels of both engineering and artistry. The floors were made of beautiful marble, often in intricate patterns that pleased the eye without being overwhelming. The walls were decorated with frescoes and mosaics that told stories or depicted scenes from nature, giving bathers something beautiful to contemplate during their relaxation. The ceilings were often domed, creating a sense of spaciousness and grandeur. The acoustics were carefully designed so that the sound of flowing water would be audible throughout the complex, creating a constant, soothing background that masked other noises and promoted relaxation. The engineering required to heat and supply water to these massive complexes was extraordinary. Aqueducts brought fresh water from distant sources, while an elaborate system of furnaces and pipes provided heat. But all of this technical complexity was hidden from view, allowing bathers to simply enjoy the results without being distracted by the mechanics. The overall effect was one of effortless luxury. Everything worked perfectly, everything was beautiful, and everything was designed to promote relaxation and well-being. It was a place where the stresses of daily life simply couldn't survive. Social life, the art of Roman conversation. The bathhouse was one of the few places in Roman society where people of different social classes could interact as equals. Wealthy patricians might find themselves in conversation with middle-class merchants or even well-educated slaves. The common experience of relaxation and the informal atmosphere broke down many of the barriers that existed in the outside world. Conversations in the bathhouse were typically relaxed and philosophical. People discussed literature, politics, philosophy, and the events of the day, but always in a gentle, thoughtful way. The warm, humid atmosphere seemed to encourage reflection and deep thinking, and many important ideas were probably born in these casual conversations. Business was sometimes conducted in the bathhouse, but it was always secondary to relaxation. The atmosphere was simply too peaceful and pleasant to allow for aggressive negotiation or heated debate. Even serious discussions took on a more contemplative tone in this setting. Children were sometimes brought to the bathhouse, and they would play quietly in the cooler areas while their parents relaxed. The sound of their gentle laughter added to the pleasant atmosphere, reminding everyone of the simple joys of life, the gentle end of day. As evening approaches, the bathhouse begins to empty slowly. People emerge from their baths feeling refreshed and renewed, their skin glowing and their spirits lifted. They dress slowly, reluctant to leave this peaceful sanctuary and return to the outside world. The last bathers of the day often have the pools almost to themselves, creating an even more intimate and peaceful experience. The oil lamps cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the sound of water echoes more clearly in the emptier spaces. As you finally leave the bathhouse, you feel completely relaxed and at peace. Your body feels clean and healthy, your mind is clear and calm, and you're ready to enjoy a peaceful evening meal and a good night's sleep. The bathhouse has worked its magic, transforming you from a stressed citizen into a relaxed, contented person. Segment 3. The Art of Japanese Tea Ceremony. Calm scene transition from Rome to Japan. Let's now float gently across the oceans and through time, leaving the warm marble halls of Rome behind us like a pleasant memory. Our journey takes us to a completely different world, a quiet tea house in medieval Japan, where the art of simplicity has been refined to its most perfect expression. Imagine the scene changing around you as softly as pages turning in a book. The grand architecture of Rome dissolves into the clean, elegant lines of Japanese design. The social bustle of the bathhouse fades into profound silence. The humid warmth of the Roman pools gives way to the cool, serene atmosphere of a traditional Japanese room. You find yourself approaching a modest tea house nestled in a carefully tended garden. The path to the entrance is made of stepping stones, each one perfectly placed to create a sense of harmony and balance. Bamboo rustles gently in the breeze, and you can hear the soft splash of water in a nearby fountain. Origins in Zen Buddhism, the path to mindfulness. The Japanese tea ceremony, or shinoyu, emerged from the Zen Buddhist tradition, which emphasized mindfulness, simplicity, and the finding of profound truth in everyday activities. The ceremony wasn't really about tea at all. It was about creating a perfect moment of peace and connection, a brief escape from the complexities of worldly life. The tea house itself embodies these principles. It's small and intimate, with room for only a few people at most. The walls are made of natural materials, bamboo, wood, and paper, and the overall effect is one of organic harmony. There are no unnecessary decorations, no displays of wealth or power. Everything serves a purpose, and everything is beautiful in its simplicity. The entrance to the tea house is deliberately small, requiring guests to bow as they enter. This isn't about humility in the face of authority, but rather about leaving the ego and the concerns of the outside world behind. As you duck through the low doorway, you symbolically enter a different realm, one where different values apply. The chaji, a full tea gathering. The complete tea ceremony, called chaji, could last for several hours, but time seems to move differently in this peaceful space. Each moment is experienced fully, without rushing toward the next. The ceremony unfolds in stages, each one designed to deepen the sense of calm and connection. The gathering begins with the guests admiring the tea house and its garden. This isn't casual sightseeing, but rather a mindful appreciation of beauty and craftsmanship. Guests might spend long moments contemplating a single flower arrangement or admiring the way morning light falls across the tatami mats. The host moves through the preparations with practiced grace, every gesture deliberate and meaningful. There's no hurry, no anxiety about performing perfectly. Instead, there's a deep sense of presence and attention to each small detail. The conversation, when it occurs, is gentle and philosophical. Guests might discuss the beauty of the season, share poetry, or simply sit in comfortable silence. The tea ceremony creates a space where silence is not awkward but rather deeply restful. The ritual of preparation, mindfulness in action. The actual preparation of the tea is a meditation in itself. The host cleans each utensil with careful attention, not because they are dirty, but because the act of cleaning becomes a form of prayer or meditation. The movements are slow and deliberate, each one performed with complete attention. The water is heated over a small fire, and the sound of it beginning to boil is welcomed as the wind in the pines. A poetic way of describing the gentle bubbling that signals the perfect temperature. This attention to sensory detail is characteristic of the tea ceremony, where every sight, sound, and smell is appreciated. The tea itself is matcha, a fine green powder that is whisked into a frothy, jade-colored beverage. The whisking motion is rhythmic and meditative, creating a moment of focused activity that quiets the mind. The bright green color of the tea is beautiful against the dark wooden bowls, creating a visual harmony that pleases the eye. The offering, grace in giving and receiving. When the tea is ready, the host offers it to the guests with a deep bow. This isn't mere politeness, but rather a genuine expression of respect and care. The act of offering becomes a moment of connection between human beings, a recognition of our shared humanity. The guest receives the tea bowl with both hands, examining it carefully before drinking. This appreciation of the bowl is important. It acknowledges the craftsmanship of the potter and the care of the host in selecting it. The bowl itself becomes part of the meditation, its weight, texture, and warmth all contributing to the experience. The tea is consumed slowly, in small sips, allowing the subtle flavors to be fully appreciated. The taste is slightly bitter but refreshing, and the warmth spreads through the body, creating a sense of comfort and well-being. After drinking, the guest cleans the rim of the bowl and passes it back to the host, completing the cycle of giving and receiving. This simple act creates a moment of intimacy and connection that transcends words. The importance of silence and humility. One of the most profound aspects of the tea ceremony is its embrace of silence. Long periods pass without conversation, but the silence is not empty. It's full of awareness and presence. Participants become acutely aware of their surroundings, of the beauty of the moment, and of their connection to each other. The ceremony also cultivates humility. The host, no matter how skilled, approaches each gathering with the attitude of a beginner, open to learning and growth. Guests are encouraged to forget their worldly status and simply be present as human beings sharing a moment of peace. This humility extends to the appreciation of imperfection. The tea ceremony celebrates wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and impermanence. A crack in a tea bowl, the asymmetry of a flower arrangement, the way shadows change throughout the ceremony. All of these imperfections are treasured as part of the experience. Hashtag the gentle conclusion, carrying peace into the world. As the ceremony draws to a close, participants don't simply finish their tea and leave. Instead, there's a gradual transition back to the outside world. The host might show guests special objects related to the tea ceremony, sharing stories about their history or significance. The final moments of the ceremony are often spent in quiet reflection. Participants might sit in silence, allowing the experience to settle into their minds and hearts. The peace and mindfulness cultivated during the ceremony becomes something they can carry with them into their daily lives. When guests finally leave the tea house, they do so slowly and mindfully, bowing to the host and to each other. They step back into the garden, where the natural world mirrors the harmony they've experienced inside. The ceremony is over, but its effects linger, like the subtle aftertaste of the tea itself. Segment 4. A night in an ancient library. Gentle scene transition from Japan to Alexandria. Our peaceful journey continues now, floating gently from the intimate tea house of Japan to another sanctuary of human wisdom and contemplation. Let us drift through time and space once more, leaving behind the carefully tended gardens and quiet ceremonies of medieval Japan. Imagine the scene transforming around you like a slow fade in a peaceful dream. The clean lines of the tea house give way to the grand columns and marble halls of ancient Alexandria. The gentle sound of bamboo in the wind becomes the soft whisper of papyrus scrolls being unrolled. The intimate scale of the tea ceremony expands into the vast repositories of human knowledge that were the great libraries of the ancient world. You find yourself approaching the Library of Alexandria as evening falls, when the scholars and scribes are settling in for a night of quiet study. Oil lamps flicker in the gathering darkness, and the air is filled with the scent of ink, parchment, and the wisdom of ages. The Library of Alexandria, a temple of learning. The Library of Alexandria was more than just a repository of books. It was a living center of learning where scholars from around the world came to study, research, and share their knowledge. As you enter its halls, you're struck not by its grandeur, but by its serenity. Despite its size, the library has an intimate, welcoming atmosphere. The main hall stretches before you, its ceiling supported by tall columns that seem to reach toward the heavens. The walls are lined with niches and alcoves, each one filled with carefully organized scrolls. The organization is remarkable. Librarians have developed sophisticated systems for cataloging and storing the thousands of texts that make up the collection. The lighting is soft and golden, coming from oil lamps placed throughout the hall. The flames flicker gently, creating a warm, living light that's perfect for reading. The shadows dance on the walls, but they're not distracting. Instead, they add to the peaceful, contemplative atmosphere. Scholars reading by lamplight, the pursuit of knowledge. Throughout the library, scholars sit at wooden tables, completely absorbed in their reading. Some are young students, their faces bright with curiosity and wonder. Others are elderly masters, their beards gray with age and their eyes wise with decades of study. But all share the same expression of peaceful concentration. The scholars read not with the frantic urgency of students cramming for exams, but with the patient, methodical approach of people who truly love learning. They take notes on wax tablets, stopping frequently to think about what they've read. Some pause to discuss passages with their neighbors, but always in whispers that won't disturb others. The scrolls they read contain the wisdom of the ages, works of philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and literature. Some are original texts by famous authors, while others are copies made by the library's skilled scribes. Each scroll represents years of human thought and effort, and the scholars treat them with appropriate reverence. The gentle rustle of scrolls and scent of ink. One of the most distinctive sounds in the library is the gentle rustle of papyrus scrolls being unrolled and rolled up again. It's a soft, papery sound that becomes part of the background ambience, like the sound of leaves in a gentle breeze. The scrolls are made from papyrus reeds that grow along the Nile, and they have a distinctive texture and smell that adds to the sensory experience of the library. The scent of ink is everywhere, not the sharp, chemical smell of modern ink, but the organic, earthy scent of ink made from soot and gum. It mingles with the smell of the papyrus and the oil from the lamps, creating a unique fragrance that immediately identifies this as a place of learning and scholarship. Scribes work at specially designed desks, carefully copying texts to preserve them for future generations. Their work is meticulous and beautiful, with each letter formed with artistic precision. They take pride in their craft, knowing that their careful work will ensure that these precious texts survive for centuries to come. Knowledge as a gentle companion. In the ancient library, knowledge isn't seen as a burden to be carried or a weapon to be wielded, but as a gentle companion that enriches life. The scholars here aren't competing with each other or racing to publish their findings. Instead, they're participating in a timeless conversation with the greatest minds of the past. The library encourages collaboration and discussion. When a scholar makes a discovery or has an insight, he shares it freely with his colleagues. The pursuit of knowledge is seen as a collective endeavor, with each person contributing to the greater understanding of humanity. The pace of learning is unhurried and organic. Scholars follow their curiosity wherever it leads, spending months or even years on a single question. There's no pressure to produce quick results or to move on to the next topic. Instead, there's a deep appreciation for the slow, careful process of understanding. Daily library life, the rhythm of scholarship. The library operates on a peaceful daily rhythm that mirrors the natural cycles of day and night. Scholars arrive in the morning, often before dawn, when the air is cool and their minds are fresh. They spend the early hours reading and taking notes, working in the quiet concentration that comes with the start of a new day. As the day progresses, the library becomes more social. Scholars gather in small groups to discuss their reading, sharing insights and asking questions. These discussions are always respectful and thoughtful, with each person listening carefully to the others before speaking. The librarians move quietly through the halls, helping scholars find the texts they need and ensuring that the scrolls are properly cared for. They're not just caretakers of books, but skilled scholars themselves, able to guide researchers to the sources they need and to suggest new avenues of inquiry. The art of ancient bookmaking. The process of creating books in the ancient world was a skilled craft that required patience, artistry, and deep knowledge. The scribes who worked in the library were highly trained professionals who took great pride in their work. They used reed pens cut from marsh plants, and their ink was made from a mixture of soot, gum, and water. The papyrus scrolls were made from the pith of papyrus plants, which grew abundantly in the Nile Delta. The process of making papyrus was complex and time-consuming, requiring skill and experience to produce high-quality writing material. The finished scrolls were smooth and durable, capable of lasting for centuries if properly cared for. The scribes worked slowly and carefully, forming each letter with artistic precision. They decorated important texts with beautiful illustrations and ornamental borders, turning each scroll into a work of art as well as a repository of knowledge. The finished products were not just functional books, but beautiful objects that reflected the scribe's skill and the importance of the text. The quiet evening hours. As evening falls, the library takes on an even more peaceful atmosphere. The number of scholars decreases, leaving only the most dedicated researchers still bent over their scrolls. The oil lamps burn more brightly in the gathering darkness, creating pools of warm light throughout the hall. The sounds of the outside world fade away, leaving only the gentle rustle of scrolls, the soft scratch of pens on parchment, and the occasional whispered discussion. The library becomes a sanctuary of peace and contemplation, isolated from the concerns of the everyday world. Some scholars work late into the night, so absorbed in their research that they lose track of time. Others retire early, knowing that their minds work best in the fresh hours of the morning. The library accommodates all different working styles, providing a space where each person can pursue knowledge in his own way. The timeless nature of learning. As you sit in the ancient library, surrounded by the wisdom of ages, you become aware of the timeless nature of human curiosity and learning. The questions that occupied scholars 2,000 years ago are often the same questions that occupy us today. The search for truth, beauty, and understanding is a constant thread that connects all human cultures and all historical periods. The library represents humanity's collective memory, preserving the thoughts and discoveries of countless individuals for future generations. Each scroll contains not just information, but the essence of human thought and creativity. The scholars who work here are not just pursuing their own interests, but contributing to the ongoing conversation of human civilization. Segment 5. Life in a medieval monastery. Soft scene transition from Alexandria to the monastery. Now let us find peace in the quiet walls of a medieval monastery, leaving behind the grand halls of Alexandria's library. Our journey carries us forward through time, from the classical world of ancient learning to the contemplative world of medieval spirituality. Imagine the scene changing around you as gently as candlelight flickering in a breeze. The marble columns of the library fade into the stone walls of the monastery. The rustle of papyrus scrolls becomes the soft whisper of robes moving through silent corridors. The learned discussions of philosophers give way to the quiet prayers of monks seeking divine wisdom. You find yourself approaching a monastery as dawn breaks over the countryside. The building rises from the landscape like a natural outcropping of stone, its walls weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Bell towers reach toward the sky, and somewhere in the distance, you can hear the gentle tolling of the monastery bell, calling the faithful to morning prayers. The monastic day, a rhythm of prayer and work. Life in the monastery follows a rhythm as old as the hills, a pattern of prayer, work, and contemplation that has remained unchanged for centuries. The monks rise before dawn, while the world is still dark and quiet. This isn't because they're being punished or because life is harsh, but because they've discovered that the pre-dawn hours offer a special kind of